Everyone thought it was just ordinary neighborhood life. But retired neighbor Eleanor was documenting suspicious activities, surveillance patterns, dead drops, communication protocols. These reminded her of a language she'd learned 30 years ago. When neighborhood security was under threat, this quiet woman was about to reveal very different skills. From which city in the world are you watching this story today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing to Unseen Legends for more tales of quiet heroes walking among us. Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. The suburban streets of Arlington, Virginia were beginning their daily routine. Eleanor Mitchell, 72 years old, was watering her front garden while observing the neighborhood. With her floral dress, gentle smile, and careful attention to her roses, she looked like a typical retired grandmother. She had been living in this house for 10 years, and to most neighbors, she was a familiar and beloved figure. Nobody knew Eleanor's past. To them, she was just sweet Mrs. Mitchell, always ready with homemade cookies, checking on elderly neighbors, organizing block parties, and maintaining the most beautiful garden on the street. No one knew that between 1975 and 2010, she had been one of the CIA's most successful operations officers, specializing in counterintelligence and foreign surveillance detection. But this morning, Eleanor noticed something that triggered her old instincts. 3 weeks ago, a new neighbor had moved into the house across the street. David Petrov, mid-40s, claimed to be a freelance consultant, but Eleanor's trained eye had been cataloging inconsistencies. Petrov left his house every morning at exactly 8:15 a.m., but his car odometer readings didn't match his claimed work locations. His garbage contained unusual items, encrypted USB drives, European newspapers, and receipt patterns that suggested counter-surveillance shopping techniques. Most concerning were his communication habits. Every Tuesday and Friday at 6 p.m., Petrov would walk to the corner coffee shop, order the same drink, sit at the same table, and check his phone precisely 3 times before leaving. Classic intelligence tradecraft. Eleanor had been documenting everything with the methodical precision that had made her legendary at Langley. Hidden cameras, license plate tracking, behavioral analysis, skills she thought she'd never use again. This morning, as she watered her petunias, she watched Petrov execute another textbook surveillance detection route. He left his house, walked 2 blocks east, doubled back through the park, and ended up at a bus stop where he waited exactly 4 minutes before returning home. No legitimate reason for such a route. Eleanor's suspicions crystallized when she noticed Petrov had been photographing the local FBI field office during his morning jogs. She recognized the technique, intelligence gathering on federal law enforcement facilities. At 10 a.m., Eleanor made a decision that would end her quiet retirement. She called the FBI. FBI Washington Field Office. How may I help you? I need to report suspicious activity. Possible foreign intelligence operative in Arlington. Ma'am, what makes you think this person is involved in intelligence activities? Eleanor hesitated. Revealing her background meant exposing the carefully constructed civilian identity she'd maintained for over a decade, because I recognized the patterns, professional surveillance techniques, counter-surveillance behavior, and intelligence tradecraft. Ma'am, what's your background for making this assessment? Former CIA operations officer, 35 years, specialized in counterintelligence. There was a pause. Ma'am, can you hold while I transfer you to our counterintelligence division? Agent Sarah Walsh came on the line. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Agent Walsh. I need to verify your identity before we proceed. Eleanor provided her retired CIA credentials and former operational code word. Within minutes, Walsh confirmed Eleanor's legendary status within the intelligence community. Mrs. Mitchell, we've been monitoring increased foreign intelligence activity in the D.C. area. Can you detail your observations? Eleanor opened the comprehensive surveillance file she'd been building. Subject: David Petrov, 1247 Maple Street. Exhibits classic intelligence operative behavior patterns, daily surveillance detection routes, communication protocols consistent with foreign intelligence training, photographing federal facilities. How long have you been monitoring him? 3 weeks. I have photographic evidence, pattern analysis, and behavioral documentation. Ma'am, why didn't you report this earlier? I needed to be certain. False positives damage innocent people, but his activities are escalating. Agent Walsh was impressed. Even retired, Eleanor's operational instincts were sharper than most active intelligence officers. Mrs. Mitchell, we'd like to bring you in for a full briefing. Can you come to the field office? I'll be there this afternoon. But Agent Walsh, we need to move quickly. Petrov is preparing for something big. How do you know? Last night he received a package delivery at 11 p.m. No legitimate courier operates that late. Plus, he's been burning documents in his backyard and sanitizing his communications devices. At 2 p.m., Eleanor walked into the FBI's Washington field office. Agent Walsh met her at security. Mrs. Mitchell, I have to admit, your operational security file is impressive. Deputy Director wants to meet with you personally. They were joined by Deputy Director James Morrison and Counterintelligence Specialist Agent Mike Rodriguez. Mrs. Mitchell, Morrison began, your file shows remarkable service. Operation Nightingale, the Berlin Wall intelligence, the Moscow embassy penetration, legendary work. Thank you, sir, but I'm retired now. I just want my neighborhood safe. About that, we've been tracking a Russian intelligence cell operating in the DC area. Your neighbor fits the profile of a sleeper agent we've been hunting. Eleanor wasn't surprised. SVR training is distinctive. Petrov exhibits textbook Russian intelligence methodologies. Can you elaborate? Eleanor pulled out her meticulously organized surveillance notes. Petrov uses a modified Moscow Rules communication protocol. His surveillance detection routes follow Yasenevo Academy training patterns. His dead drop techniques are FSB standard operating procedure. Agent Rodriguez looked amazed. You compiled all this while retired. Old habits. Plus, protecting my community is still my mission. Mrs. Mitchell, Morrison continued, we need your help. Petrov is planning to acquire classified materials from a Pentagon contractor. We need someone who can observe him without triggering his counter-surveillance awareness. You want me to conduct surveillance on a foreign operative. You're perfectly positioned. He sees you as a harmless elderly neighbor. You have operational experience he can't detect. Eleanor considered. She'd spent 10 years building a peaceful civilian life, but protecting America from foreign threats had been her life's work. What's the operation scope? Limited surveillance. Document his contacts, photograph his meetings, identify his handler. We'll handle enforcement. Rules of engagement? Passive observation only. No direct contact, no operational risk. Eleanor agreed. I'll need some equipment updates. My surveillance gear is decade old. Anything you need. For the next 2 weeks, Eleanor conducted the most sophisticated neighborhood surveillance operation in FBI history. Using advanced micro cameras, encrypted communications, and behavioral analysis software, she documented Petrov's entire intelligence network. She identified his Russian handler, photographed dead drop locations, and recorded his meetings with a Pentagon contractor who was selling classified missile defense plans. The breakthrough came when Eleanor detected Petrov's preparation for a major intelligence transfer. He'd been cleaning his apartment, destroying evidence, and preparing to exfiltrate. Agent Walsh, this is Eleanor. Petrov is moving tonight. All indicators point to intelligence package transfer and possible escape. Roger. Teams are in position. Eleanor watched from her bedroom window as FBI tactical teams surrounded Petrov's house. Her documentation had provided exact layouts, escape routes, and hiding places. FBI, David Petrov, you're under arrest for espionage. Petrov was captured along with stolen Pentagon documents worth millions to foreign governments. Eleanor's intelligence had prevented a major national security breach. The next morning, Agent Walsh visited Eleanor. Mitchell, because of your work, we've rolled up an entire Russian intelligence network. Petrov was coordinating 5 other operatives. I'm glad I could help. Ma'am, would you consider consulting for us? Your skills are extraordinary. Eleanor looked at her peaceful garden, then at the neighborhood she'd protected. Part-time perhaps, but I like my quiet life here. Why did you retire from operations? Because I wanted to protect people through community service instead of international intrigue. This neighborhood is my beat now. When news of the spy capture broke, Eleanor's neighbors were shocked to learn their sweet elderly neighbor had been the key intelligence source. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door approached. Eleanor, we had no idea you were CIA. Former CIA, dear. Now I'm just your neighbor who likes gardening. But you caught a real spy. I protected our community. That's what neighbors do. Young neighbor Jake asked, Mrs. Mitchell, were you really a secret agent? Intelligence officer Jake, I gathered information to protect America. That's so cool. Will you teach me spy stuff? Eleanor smiled. I'll teach you to be observant, to care about your community, and to serve others. Those are the most important skills. The CIA sent representatives to thank Eleanor personally. Director Sarah Chen visited her home. Eleanor, your work prevented a major intelligence disaster. The president wants to thank you personally. That's kind but unnecessary. I was just doing my civic duty. You did much more. You proved that service doesn't end with retirement. Eleanor found the perfect balance. 3 days a week consulting for FBI counterintelligence, 4 days maintaining her beloved garden and neighborhood relationships. This way I can protect America and my community simultaneously. Arlington's most unusual neighbor, the woman who catches spies while tending roses. The truth was, Eleanor loved both missions. Sometimes the most extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary places. People like Eleanor water gardens in suburban neighborhoods, but their eyes still scan for threats. Training never disappears, service never ends. The next time you see your elderly neighbor tending their garden, remember, they might be protecting you in ways you never imagined. Have you ever discovered someone's background was completely different from their apparent lifestyle? Tell us in the comments, and if you want to hear more stories about quiet protectors like Eleanor Mitchell, subscribe to Unseen Legends, because sometimes the best national security is found in a neighborhood garden. This story is a work of fiction created to honor the spirit of service. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental.